One of the most common things I hear people saying right now with pretty much everything Hasbro releases is, that looks cool, but I'll wait for it to be on clearance. Basically, they're playing a game of price drop chicken. And to be completely honest, before I became a retailer, I did the same thing. Even now as a retailer, I often find myself doing the same thing when I'm buying inventory. But major changes are happening in the world of Hasbro toys, and playing this game is about to become way more dangerous than it used to be. Today, I'm going to explain why and give you all the info you need to know before you start playing this game of clearance chicken. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Matt, often called Big Nerdy. Together, we are the NWO, the Nerd World Order, and this is Nerdzoic. If it is your first time here, welcome. On this channel, we talk a lot about nerdy stuff, and usually it ends up with toys. And while this channel started off as a way for me to cure boredom during the pandemic, it has eventually grown into a full-fledged business along with a toy store. So yeah, not the path I expected. I want to start this video off with some full transparency. Nothing I say here can be traced to a source. None of it is confirmed. All of this is based on my own experience as a collector and a retailer, as well as some whisper down the lane from various sources inside Hasbro. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I'm not pulling a guru move here and saying that something is news rather than a rumor. Masters of the Universe fans, if you know, you know. I recommend you stay to the end, but I am going to give you a TLDR here, and that is this. Very soon, if not already, we are entering a stage in the Hasbro toy economy where products are not going to be produced in the same volume. This is going to make them more scarce and thus harder to find and far less likely to ever make it to clearance. As far as what this means for you, if a release is announced and you say, oh my god, I have to have it, do not play price chicken. If a release is announced and you say, that's alright, maybe I'll get it, then you can play price chicken. But don't do it with things that are must-haves. Let me explain this a little further. I call this the production pendulum. The goal of production for a company like, say, Hasbro, is to balance supply with demand. But that's really hard to nail perfectly, often due to minimum order quantities, meaning that you have to live in either a oversupply area or an undersupply area to varying degrees as you try to get that pendulum in the middle. Let me explain, but before I get too far into this, let me acknowledge that I have interest in this, alright? I sell the product. I'm in the game, as Mike would say. But like I said at the very beginning, I sometimes play this price chicken game as a store. For example, the Super Deluxe Mojo figure that came out last year, I ordered enough units to fulfill my pre-orders and have a couple of units extra for on hand for in-stock customers. That was it. I never restocked it. I didn't want any more because I know eventually I'm going to be able to buy these on clearance from Hasbro directly. I'm not going to pay full price because I know these are eventually going to become like worthless. So why does this whole production pendulum effect happen? Why can't they just nail down what demand is? Because it's impossible. Minimum order quantity, figuring out exactly what people are going to like, very hard to know. Here's what they look at though. Hasbro and retail partners like Target and Walmart, they see lower sales going on, and they see things consistently going to clearance and selling far below wholesale cost, and in many cases it's even below production cost, causing a loss of money on every sale. These companies are not in business to lose money, so when they see this they say, uh-oh, cut production, Billy! And this change doesn't happen overnight. Whenever I used to work in really troubled restaurants and try to turn them around, I used a cruise ship analogy. Basically, if you're driving or piloting or captaining, I don't know what the right word is, a cruise ship, and you want to make a left turn like 90 degrees, you can't just do it in an instant like a flip of a switch. It takes like 45 minutes to an hour to make that kind of a turn. In business, same idea. To make these kind of changes take into effect, you can't just flip the switch immediately because this product is already long in production. So whenever they decided to flip the switch, which I don't know when they decided or if it's happened yet, it's going to though, for sure, it takes time to take effect. And that's just because of the timeline that's involved in designing, making, and distributing these figures. And I don't think this is going to be unique to Hasbro. I think we're also going to see it with a lot of the other big companies. So Mattel, Super 7, McFarlane, all of them have had massive clearances and liquidations over the last year, but I don't have as much knowledge about them to say for sure that they're going to cut their print runs, but I would say it's a very good bet. Hasbro profits are down, and this is public info if you follow the news and the company from an investor point of view. Hasbro has hurt the demand themselves by increasing prices repeatedly and by messing with packaging, but that seems to be just about over. The packaging, that is, not the pricing. The collectible sector as a whole also is seeing its sales impacted by the fact that there's just not as much money in the economy now as there was a few years ago. Also, that I word, inflation. Bottom line is that all signs point to a big cut in production. In fact, the word on the streets is that the production cut is anywhere between 35 and 45%, which is massive. So to sum up, too much product is hurting the company, so they're gonna make less. It's hard to know how much to cut, so more often than not, they cut too much, making the market swing to the opposite side of the pendulum, two things being harder to find. If you have been collecting for a while, you can look back over the years and see examples of this pretty obviously. One of the more recent examples is with the Black Series. Think back to the beginning of the Red Box era with Force Awakens in early 2015 and 2016. They produced the hell out of those figures because there was a new movie coming out and the Black Series had been doing pretty well. The sequels were not received positively, let's put that mildly, and that combined with the amount of production meant that these figures were worthless because they were so overprinted. You can still find the Tracy Morgan looking Finn in the brown leather jacket pretty much anywhere for about $5. Force Awakens was followed up by The Last Jedi, and the demand was so low that their figures just hit clearance everywhere almost immediately. And then Hasbro figured out, okay, time to swing the production pendulum back, time to lower production, and that's where we get things like the Dr. Aphra wave with her droids that like to torture people, Qui-Gon Jinn, Mace Windu. Very few of these figures were made compared to the figures previously made during the movies. And because of that, these figures went crazy. Like, it was impossible to find these figures in stores, and they shot up on the secondary market almost immediately. We got repacks of these relatively quickly, except for Aphra, who took a few years. Now, this impact was lessened by the fact that they figured this out quickly and made reprints, but that doesn't always happen. They overcorrected again, though, when they saw that the demand for the Mace and the Qui-Gon was so high compared to the production that they said, oh, we gotta make more, so they swung it back again just in time for Rise of Skywalker and Zori Bliss to be everywhere. Now, another part of that, I'm sure, is Disney saying, you make sure you have toys everywhere, but that is not the only factor. Retro Legends are another good example. The Retro X-Men and Avengers figures either had a massive print run, or they dramatically underperformed. I assume the former, though, because I have no insider knowledge on this because it's years ago. Ironically, both are super expensive now, but that's not always the case. Because of this, these figures ended up getting liquidated and ending up in stores like Ollie's and Ross. Now, both of these are starting to go up and are becoming more expensive, but that's neither here nor there. Then they swung the pendulum, and when we got the Spider-Man retro figures, that first series was really tough to find. Now, for a long time, you could still find the not-so-popular figures in it, the MJ/Gwen, the Daredevil, the Peter Parker, but there weren't that many printed because they were in stores for a few months. Some of them even went to clearance, but now, nowhere to be found. They're all super expensive. How they didn't print more Spider-Mans and Green Goblins? Beyond me. I only saw the full wave together in stores once. But then the pendulum swung the other way for Spider-Man Retro 2, and these things flooded the market, except for the black suit Spider-Man that everybody wanted. You can also see this phenomenon just by looking at specific waves. Look at the 𝐒𝐨𝐥𝐿 Bad Batch wave. The entire wave is performing like crazy because the print run had to have been pretty low. You might say to yourself, what about big box exclusives? Well, how do you think I get them? Sometimes they make too many, and Big Nerdy steps in. The bottom line is this. Clearance chicken can end in two ways, and both of them are a meme. You can either be this guy and score some figures at a cheap price and win big, or you can end up like this clown on Facebook who's looking to find these figures at a fair price. Don't be the second guy. Now, as I said at the beginning here, all of this is conjecture. It's based on my 20 years as a collector, 20 years of running businesses, and my 2 years as a toy retailer. I don't have any super inside info other than unconfirmed whisper down the lane rumors, but I'm usually right. For example, last summer, I talked about how Hasbro's new system of sandbagging dates so they wouldn't be late sucked. I even said that it would probably lead to the death of some retailers, and oh, look at that, it happened just a few months later. Nostradamus here. So go watch that video if you don't believe me, and remember, you gotta get old, but you don't have to grow up. Just be cool and stay nerdy. Later.